Hi, Gabriel. My name is Jana Kraft, and I'm a business professor at a university in Minnesota. And I know your mom. We went to school together, and before you roll your eyes like kids tend to do when they're in high school, because that's totally what I would have done, just let me tell you that she remembered that I had a video posted to YouTube a while ago called Stop Killing Your Audience, and she told me that you have a presentation with your group about Colombia, and some of the things that were in your presentation are about education and poverty, drugs, crime, and soccer, which is kind of a fun combination of everything that would be Colombian, I think. Anyway, so she asked me to send the link, and of course it was done at my other university, which means that when I left there, it all died. So I recreated it for you today, and I wanted to send you this little message to ask you to watch the video and to let you know that as a business professor, one of the things I see not only with my students but also with people in the community are that their presentations are horrible. So if you want to stand out now and in college, and if you go into the workforce later, this is something that people are doing to get a leg up and not just to get a good grade in class. I teach this to my students every semester in a class called Organizational Dynamics, which is an organizational behavior class, and I make them do it. So don't think that you are the only one, you and your group, if you choose to do it this way or are doing it, because I make my students do it too. And they hate me in the beginning, but then afterwards, after they see other horrible presentations from other classes and other students, they know that they've done a really good job. So this is highly visual. It relies more on you than on looking at the screen. One of the things in the presentation is that you are the focal point of the presentation, and the PowerPoint should just be visual wallpaper. So this puts you, the presenter, front and center instead of people reading off a screen, which, do I have to tell you that that's boring? Because it's super boring. So, and most people just like read information off the slide, and I hate it. So my quest is to get people to stop sucking in front of their audience because, quite frankly, I'm tired of it. So anyway, I'm making this little thing for you and your group. Good luck, and let me know how it goes. And I will attach this to the presentation and give you a link just for you and your group. So good luck, and let me know if you have any questions. Bye.
Hi there. My name is Dr. Jana Kraft, and I am a business professor at Winona State University in Winona, Minnesota. And this is Stop Killing Your Audience. Whenever you prepare a presentation, I want you to think of two things. Your audience is going to want to know, so what, and who cares? As a professor and as a regular audience member at conferences and other business presentations, I often find myself thinking, why am I wasting my time? So please don't waste my time. Tell me something valuable. Tell me something that I can take with me. I wanted to share a little bit of what I see when presentations are made at conferences or in the professional world. And so bear with me while I tell you show you these slides that are quite painful. When I talk about stop killing your audience, this is what I mean. You saw was a transition, and so not only what's on the slide, but also how the slides go, how the slides move between each other is really important. This is a typical slide that I see at conferences. We have all this great research, we have all these great statistics, but it's so boring. And if you can imagine me standing up there and telling you, probably reading off the slide, these statistics, they don't really mean anything. I mean, they're just numbers on a page. And meanwhile, while I'm reading them to you off of the slide, you are also reading them and you are not paying attention to me. So why don't we just cut the BS and I can just print the slides for you and we can all go home. Better yet, I'll just email it to you. We don't have to go in the first place. Here's something else. This is actually from NASA, from the Glenn Research Center. And I don't do this kind of math, and I mean, thank God, right? But here's something that clearly does not belong on a slide. This is for the paper. This is for the research paper or the document that you published, which is the reason why you're presenting it at the conference in the first place. We don't really care about how you got all of this. All we care about in the presentation, because it's usually, 15 or 20 minutes, is what does this mean? So while this, I'm sure, is important, it doesn't need to be in the presentation. This is also something that doesn't necessarily need to be in a presentation. It is 4 little graphical representation of something, diagnosis and cumulative survival of something something. It's really colorless, it's boring, it's hard to read, and when I'm talking to you in front of an audience, I don't want you to have to figure out my slide and what it means. In contrast, this is very colorful, but yet if we were standing in a classroom or in a large auditorium, there is no way that you'd be able to see from the very end this little town way up here in New York, right? Or that this is Warren, Michigan, right here. It's really confusing. There's a lot going on this slide. And so let's break it down for people and make it easy to read in less than 2 seconds. Here's a very basic PowerPoint, a very basic template that all students or presenters are faced with. You have your awesome points in the header, and then you have 3 main awesome points. And then as the awesome point number 2, let's say, gets broken down, it gets so small, and you're reading this while you should be listening to the presenter. Your background should be wallpaper, like digital wallpaper, and you, the presenter, are at center stage. And so this is something that I think kills your audience, because while they are reading this, you are just standing up there talking and they're not listening to you. So this presentation is how to not do all these things. I'm going to challenge you to be memorable and to use graphics that are simple but engaging. And these graphics are free. I do a lot of my graphics through creativecommons.org, through Flickr, through Google Images that are not copyrighted. All of the images in this PowerPoint were from those sites. I'm going to challenge you to be different, because people remember different. They also remember humorous and funny. They also remember something that's deep and emotional. And all of those things are different. You want an audience that looks like this, that you're drawing them in, not that they're reading off of a slide behind you. So I want you to think about who's your audience. And in that audience of average people, whether they're academics or business people or students or kids or other working professionals, what are they going to care about in your presentation? In the academic community, we care about results and findings and next steps and implications, meaning what did you find and what am I going to do with that and how can I take your research further? In the business context, it might be, what did you do? What did the customers say? And how can I use that in my business to help my customers? Here are some other questions that you should think of that your audience is going to be asking. What exactly is this that you're telling me? Why should I care? How can I use it? What does it mean for me? And now what? So I'm just going to show you briefly 3 things that will set your presentation free. First, we have the slides that your audience sees. And you should not start your paper from the slides, right? You should not start your presentation from the slides either. You should make an outline of what you're going to say and then pick out, and as we'll do in just a second, pick out the most important topics and then create your slides from there, which we'll see in just a second. The notes are things that you only see. So whether it's notes using the note function of PowerPoint or Keynote or actual note cards, your audience doesn't need to see these things. And then the handout. I will also include some directions on how to make handouts instead of printing your PowerPoint. If you do it well with this method, your PowerPoint will not make any sense to someone if you are not attached to it speaking. The handout is the one-page detail that the audience will take with them that are the most critical key points in your presentation. And this is something you hand out after you've already spoken. Within your presentation, you want to create a document, not a slide-ument. And a slide-ument is a totally made-up word by Gar Reynolds and Nancy Duarte, who are two masters of presentations. A slide-ument, cramming every single word, chart, table, and statistic in your presentation in order to save time. We see this when professors or professional people require a 6-slide presentation, and then you're doing everything in 8-point or 10-point font, and that really does not translate into a good presentation. Okay, so this presentation that you're seeing right now is 74 slides, I believe, and there's no way that you would know that that's 74 slides if you were bored. So let's look at just a brief comparison, as opposed to look at all these things. I'm going to describe all these things, and it's going to be really confusing. Let's talk about font. When you're putting a presentation together, you have to take into consideration how big is the room that you're presenting in. So, for example, this is the same word with different sizes of font. We can see from 80 to 8. And you should shoot for about 36-point font and no smaller in your presentations. That limits the number of words that you can put on your slide, which is a good thing, because we want more pictures than words that represent the meaning behind what you're saying, because you are saying the words. They shouldn't have to read the words on the slide. When you look at color, I want you to be aware of contrast. So on the two left ones, the white on black and black on white, those are easily identified color contrast. The ones on the right, especially for older eyes, if it's hard to pick out, if it hurts my eyes, blue on a red background, for example, is very disturbing to the eyeball. So my advice to you is to keep your colors simple and straightforward. Also, style of font is really important. If you are presenting something that is important or serious, do not use Comic Sans font, because you have just reduced your credibility. You have to pick the style of font that matches the meaning. Now, if you're presenting to a kindergarten class or a group of kindergarten teachers, great! Use the Comic Sans. Let me show you an example of font. So here we have something from the UCLA Higher Education Research Institute in 2013, and we're using the Curls font. And the statistic is 84% of incoming college freshmen expect to graduate from college in 4 years, and in fact, only about half are likely to do so. So if I'm presenting to freshmen and I use the Curls font, it's weird, right? It doesn't match my sentiment. So I realized this, and now I'm going to switch my font style to Kirsten, which looks a lot like Comic Sans, and this feels like I'm now playing down to them, right? I'm talking down to them like they're children and not incoming freshmen. Well, and here's agency. So this is kind of a serious, uptight font here, and this looks really professional and really kind of anal retentive, right? Well, my challenge to you is, why do we have to say it at all? Why do we have to put it on a slide? Why don't you break it down with pictures? 1, 2, 3 slides to tell them that is going to be much more impactful. And then you are the center of the information, and the visual supports your meaning. Chip and Dan Heath, brothers, they wrote a book entitled Made to Stick, and their suggestion for presentation was making your ideas sticky. So keep your presentations simple and your ideas simple. What are the 3 things I need to take away from this? What 6 things can impact your business? Give me something unexpected. Give me a statistic that nobody has heard of, or a story to start your presentation. Give me something that I wouldn't expect, and then I will sit up, pay attention. I want to hear some sort of concreteness in your presentation. So how do I know what you're telling me is correct? Statistics or research or well-known people backing up your ideas is always a good thing. This will lend you credibility to your audience, that they actually believe what you're telling them. But also consider using some emotion, because that's how people remember and connect with you and your information. Finally, stories are really important as well, and they can help convey that emotion, and the people remember the stories rather than statistics. So for example, if I'm talking to a group of people about nutrition and I say, you shouldn't be eating 100 grams of fat, that's bad for you. Well, I don't know what 100 grams of fat means. What is that? So give them a visual picture. That's 2 cheeseburgers, a plate of fries, and a strawberry shake. That's 100 grams of fat. You should have a third of that, no more than a third of that of your daily allowance. So give them a visual picture and they'll remember it better. So let's look at some slide revision examples. And because really, if we're talking to professional women, professional part-time workers in Japan aren't necessarily data entry clerks or secretaries with red hair who are white. So a more professional looking woman, we took out the bullet point, and what we really want to convey is important. 72% of part-time workers in Japan are women. We can see it on the screen, but it's still not a very professional looking background. Okay, so let's change it up a bit. Well, we're going to take out the woman because we want to be politically correct and not offend anyone. And hey, let's use a pie chart because pie charts automatically lend credibility. And we see here that 72% of part-time workers in Japan are women and 28% are men. Why do we need to say that 28% are men if 72% are women? Because obviously there's other percentage is men, and we're not really focusing on men. So this pie chart means nothing. Okay, so we hate the pie chart, so let's bring in pictures of real people. At least they're actually Asian, right, if we're talking to a Japanese audience, but it's ugly. I mean, it's like 72% are women, 28 are men. We got 2 people here, but it's not, they're not lined up, the colors are weird, and they're small. Okay, so let's just focus on the Asian woman, but we put the pie chart back in, and it's better, but it's not great. We still have that extraneous information of men. How about just this? So if I stand up in front of an audience and I'm talking about that 72% of our society is part-time workers in Japan, and I talk about what impact this has on our society, the economic impact, what this means for our demographics and our family structure, all of that I'm talking about puts the focus on me as the presenter, and this is in the background. Asian woman, 72%. That's it. That's all they need to know. Let's look at a second slide revision. This is a statistic about obesity in OECD nations, and specifically this graph, because students and presenters, we love graphs, because graphs tell a pictorial story. And we're looking at a population that overweight by year, and we have a clip art scale. We have a real person measuring an overweight stomach. We do have a statistic or a citation in the bottom left corner, and then we have a slide, which is completely hard to read if you're in a large room with a small slide. So instead of using all those things, let's just focus on the most important stuff, which is the information, the graph. What we're trying to say here is that the U.S. remains the fattest among developed countries by 2020. We have our source on the bottom right, and we're specifically focusing on the U.S. because this is our U.S. audience. So we recreated the bar graph, and we colored the bar that we're talking about. If we were presenting to a Korean audience, then we would have colored the Korean bar. So this is a way to do a very simple bar chart that still communicates the message that you're trying to convey. Third revision is going to be about emotion. And I teach about leadership and management at the university where I work, and this is something that we talk about, visionary leadership. So the definition of visionary leadership is this attractive ideal future that is credible yet not readily attainable. We talk about what charismatic leaders need to have and some examples of visionary leaders. Okay, well, this is all well and good, and it's easy to read, and there's not a lot of information. It's boring. I just want to fall asleep. So instead of doing this, let's pick out one visionary leader and tell a story with our slide. I got this picture of Martin Luther King off of Google Images or something free, and I just did a simple red line with a simple title. It's Charismatic Leaders Are Skilled in the Art of Visionary Leadership. And then I tell a story that illustrates how Martin Luther King was a visionary leader. I mean, pick one. There's tons of stories about how this person was skilled in the art of visionary leadership. And then if I want to highlight a word, let's say my students don't understand what visionary means, then the next slide I color it red and I add a little red box. Visionary is an attractive, or vision is an attractive ideal future that is credible yet not readily attainable. So this is a simple way to highlight, a word or a definition, incorporate a story, incorporate emotion, and not a lot of text on the slide. This last revision this was his real title slide, and then I changed it up. So let's tell a story. I got an example. I thought about a theme, about motivation, and obviously this bear is quite motivated to get this fish because the bear is hungry. This was his real slide deck. Are you snoring yet? Because, oh my God. And here were the 3 main implications for his study. So let's redo those implications. The first implication has to deal with justice, right? Enhancing justice perceptions. Fairness, right? So these 2 polar bears are duking it out and they want it to be a fair fight. This implication has to do with liking the assessment. And this polar bear clearly does not like whatever he is looking at, right? So that's the story, the emotion that it conveys. This third one is about entertaining. And this polar bear looks pretty entertained. So you can still get your point across without having to have all this stuff crammed onto each slide and it be super boring. So at the end, remember those 2 questions that I asked you in the beginning. So what and who cares? If your presentation can be beautiful for free using images online and answer these 2 questions, so what, who cares, then your audience is happier and they're going to come up with these 2 answers. So what is because it matters. Because whatever you're saying, if it didn't matter, you wouldn't be here. And we're wasting our time if it doesn't matter. Just send me the paper and we'll just stay home in our pajamas and not have to attend your lecture or your presentation. Second one, remember, who cares? You should care, and here's why. Because I have a compelling argument. I have something important to say. I have done the research, or I have investigated, or I have gone through this experience, and you should care, and here's why, and I'm going to try to tell you in the most compelling way so that you can learn something from it. And it shouldn't kill your audience to hear it. So here are 2 books that really influenced this lecture for me. This is Presentation Zen by Gar Reynolds. He has a great presentation or a great talk on YouTube. If you just get on YouTube and search Gar Reynolds authors at Google Talk, it will tell you exactly how to do it. And he's actually doing a presentation about himself. And then he learned from Nancy Duarte, who was the person who put together Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth, which isn't a movie, it's just a glorified PowerPoint. So good luck on your presentations, and if you have any examples of bad presentations, you can send them to me at janacraft.com or drjanacraft@gmail.com.